Welcome to our YouTube channel, where we explore some of the darkest and most chilling stories from around the world. In today's video, we delve into the haunting tale of the Ibadan Forest of Horror, also referred to as the Ibadan House of Horror, and the horrifying story of the notorious mass murderer Richard Speck, who murdered 8 student nurses in their South Deering, Chicago residence. The Ibadan House of Horror. In March 2014, a group of motorcycle taxi drivers embarked on a search for a fellow driver who had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. During their search, they stumbled upon the abandoned building, leading to the shocking discovery. Upon the arrival of the police, a thorough search was conducted within the deserted premises, unveiling a haunting scene. The authorities uncovered a disturbing array of human remains, including skeletons, decomposed bodies, skulls, bones, and floors stained with blood. Moreover, individuals were found restrained with leg irons, adding to the horror of the situation. During that period, Olabisi Ilobanafor, a spokesperson for the police, provided a statement to the Agence France Presse. According to Ilobanafor, upon reaching the deserted structure located in the Soka community of Ibadan on that Saturday, a distressing sight awaited them. The police discovered decomposed bodies, skeletons, and skulls both inside the building and scattered in the surrounding bushes. The scene painted a gruesome picture of the extent of the horror that had taken place there. Additionally, during the investigation, the police found and rescued a group of 7 severely emaciated individuals in the bushes surrounding the building. These individuals appeared malnourished and resembled living skeletons, indicating the extreme conditions they had endured while being held captive in that vicinity. According to Ilobanafor, the motorcycle taxi drivers had expressed concerns to the police regarding the suspicious disappearances of their colleagues. It was during this process that they inadvertently came across the horrifying scene. She emphasized that such occurrences were not common in Ibadan or the Oyo state, and the police would thoroughly investigate the crime from all angles. At the scene, the police arrested 6 individuals, which included 5 security guards. These guards were reportedly found in possession of weapons such as guns, bows, and arrows. Governor Abiola Ajimobi of Oyo State assured the local community that those responsible for the atrocities would face punishment. In addressing the situation, Governor Ajimobi expressed his belief that the perpetrators would face divine punishment. Additionally, he affirmed that the government would also ensure they face legal consequences for their actions once apprehended. The local community believed that kidnapping victims in the area were subjected to torture or sacrificed for the purposes of black magic rituals. This belief led them to speculate that the Ibadan Forest of Horror was utilized by occultists and human traffickers. In a 2019 article, the Nigerian Tribune highlighted the prevalence of satanic and occult practices, stating that they had existed since ancient times. The article quoted Shina Olukolu, the police chief of Oyo State, who acknowledged that Ibadan was a hub for various forms of occultist and satanic activities. These statements by local authorities and the media shed light on the perception that Ibadan, including the forest area in question, had been associated with a range of occult practices and rituals. As reported by The Nation, the victims were successfully rescued from the horrific situation and immediately transported to the state hospital to receive necessary medical attention. Subsequently, they were reunited with their respective families. An unnamed hospital worker disclosed to the publication that some of the victims exhibited signs of mental disorder and were subsequently referred to a psychiatric hospital for specialized care and treatment. Number 2. The Mass Murders of Richard Speck. 57 years ago, in the early morning hours of July 14, 1966, the residents of a South Chicago neighborhood were abruptly awakened by the piercing screams of a young woman. Her cries filled the air with desperation and terror as she pleaded for help, revealing a horrific reality. It was Corazon Amurao, a 23-year-old student nurse from the Philippines, who found herself perched on the second-story window ledge of a townhouse dormitory that she shared with 8 other nurses in training from the South Chicago Community Hospital. Amurao's anguished words, "They're all dead! Help! Help! My friends are all dead!" painted a chilling picture of the tragedy that had unfolded within the walls they once called home. Clad in her nightclothes, she stood as the sole survivor amidst what the Daily News dubbed a murderous orgy of sex and slaughter, ranking among the most horrendous cases of mass sex slayings in American history. Tragically, all 8 of the other nurses who resided in the townhouse dormitory had met a grim fate and lost their lives. In the face of such unspeakable horror, Corazon Amurao, standing at approximately 5'2" and weighing less than 100 pounds, managed to survive by a stroke of luck and sheer determination. As the killer subjected her friends to torture, rape, and either stabbing or strangulation, Amurao's small stature and slight build allowed her to find refuge under a bed. In this hidden sanctuary, she evaded the clutches of the perpetrator, witnessing the terrifying events unfold while remaining hidden and preserving her own life. The horrifying nightmare began around 11 p.m. on July 13th. Corazon Amurao, who was sleeping in her secured bedroom on the second floor, shared the space with two other Filipino nurses. Suddenly, she was startled by a knock on her door, prompting her to open it and come face to face with a tall man dressed in black. His face was marked with acne scars, and he menacingly pointed a gun at her. The assailant proceeded to gather the two other Filipino nurses, Merlita Gargulo, 23, and Valentina Pasian, 24, who were also present on the second floor. Additionally, he targeted three American-born students, Pamela Wilkening, 20, Pat Matusek, 20, and Nina Jo Schmale, 24, who resided in separate rooms within the same establishment. The assailants' actions had now ensnared a total of 6 young women, who would soon face unimaginable horrors. Remarkably, despite the dire circumstances, Corazon Amurao, Merlita Gargulo, and Valentina Pasian managed to break free from the clutches of the assailant and found refuge in a closet. A short while later, Amurao heard the voice of another nurse, one of her colleagues, urging them to come out, assuring them that the stranger had no intentions of causing harm. According to the woman's plea, the intruder only sought cash for a trip to New Orleans. Encouraged by this unexpected reassurance, the 3 nurses cautiously emerged from their hiding place, only to find the man and the American nurses seated in a circle on the floor. He held them at gunpoint. Moments later, other residents of the dormitory, including Gloria Davy, Marianne Jordan, and Suzanne Ferris, entered the room and unknowingly became part of the unfolding hostage situation. The suspect was identified as Richard Speck, a 24-year-old troublemaker with a volatile temperament and a history of engaging in petty crimes, substance abuse, rape, and other acts of violence that dated back to his troubled childhood. Richard Speck was born on December 6, 1941, in Kirkwood, Illinois, coincidentally, a day before the infamous attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. He grew up in a family of 8 children. However, tragedy struck when Speck was only 6 years old, as his father passed away. His mother quickly remarried and relocated to Texas, where Speck's life took a distressing turn. Tormented by his abusive stepfather, Speck sought solace in a destructive path. He delved into a life of crime, alcohol, and drugs as a means of coping. At a young age of 14, he faced his first encounter with the law, resulting in his initial arrest. As Speck grew older, his criminal activities escalated, encompassing offenses such as burglary, assault, and engaging in drunk and disorderly conduct. His relationships with women, including his wife and mother-in-law, were marred by a pattern of violence, further highlighting the troubled and turbulent nature of his life. After departing from Dallas and returning to Illinois in the spring of 1966, Richard Speck had accumulated a staggering number of arrests, with at least 40 entries on his criminal record. While incarcerated, Speck developed a particular interest in tattooing, often enlisting fellow inmates to create intricate designs on his body. It was one of these tattoos that ultimately led to his eventual capture. Inked on his left forearm was the phrase, "Born to Raise Hell." Despite an extensive manhunt and valuable leads to identify the killer, Speck managed to evade capture for several days. However, on the early morning of July 17th, authorities received a call from a Skid Row flophouse reporting a distressed tall young man in need of medical attention. This man had attempted to take his own life by slashing his arms with a knife. Dr. Leroy Smith, a physician in the trauma ward, immediately suspected that this individual might be the fugitive they were searching for. All doubts dissipated when Dr. Smith cleansed the blood from the man's arm, revealing the distinct tattoo that matched the description of the suspect. Curiosity piqued. Dr. Smith inquired, "Are you the man that the police are looking for?" Without hesitation, the man responded with a simple, "Yes, I'm Richard Speck," confirming his true identity and bringing an end to his brief period of freedom. On April 15, 1967, a swift and decisive verdict was delivered by the jury, who took only 49 minutes to find Richard Speck guilty and recommend the electric chair as his punishment. However, Following the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling declaring capital punishment unconstitutional in 1972, Speck's death sentence was commuted to a lengthy prison term ranging from 400 to 1,200 years. His life behind bars was cut short by a heart attack, occurring just a day before his birthday in 1991, less than 20 years after his conviction. Throughout his time in custody, Speck showed no signs of remorse. In a homemade prison video filmed in 1988, which later aired on A&E 5 years after his death, Speck is seen presenting himself with female breasts, a result of unauthorized hormone treatments he obtained. He is shown indulging in the consumption of cocaine, snorting it off another inmate's leg, seemingly enjoying his existence within the confines of the prison. During the video, an off-camera interviewer poses the question, "Did you kill them?" To which Speck callously responds, "Sure I did." When asked about his motive, Speck coldly remarks, "It just wasn't their night," displaying a chilling lack of remorse for his heinous actions.